Welcome back to our online video lessons. For today, we will be talking about perfect competition. So, a competition is a rivalry among firms, and that is prevalent throughout our economy. When we say it is a perfectly competitive market, that refers to a market in which economic forces operate unimpeded. So, when we say unimpeded, there's no obstruction, there's no barriers. So, you cannot stop the market forces or the economic forces to operate. So, how do we know if there is a perfect competition? So, there are several indicators or conditions. So, you have first, both buyers and sellers are price takers. The number of firms is large. There are no barriers to entry. Firms' products are identical. There is complete information, and the selling firms are profit maximizing entrepreneurial firms. So let's go to the first condition. So, a perfect competition is where both buyers and sellers are price takers. So, in this type of condition, or in this condition, no firm is individually able to influence the price or quantity sold of a given good. So they need to accept what would be the price that will prevail in the market as a result of the interaction of the buyers and the sellers. The market supply and demand determine the price both firms and consumers take. So the price market price what? So now let's discuss each of the conditions. So the first one, both buyers and sellers are price takers. So in this case, no firm is individually able to influence the price or quantity sold of a given good. So the market supply and demand shall determine the price, and so the buyers and the sellers, or the firms or and the consumers, shall take the market price as given. So they don't have any choice. They cannot decide for the price individually. So for example, the firm cannot just state that this will be the price of the good. If the firm would increase the price of the good because it wants to have more revenues and more profit, he cannot just freely do so, because in effect, the customers might transfer to another seller which can offer the same goods. And remember that in a perfect competition, as what was indicated in the previous slide, that the goods are identical. So therefore, the other sellers has the same goods that one firm offers. So if this firm will raise the price or increase the price of his goods. So he cannot just do that. He has to consider that other firms offer the same goods. So if he raises the prices, the customers might transfer to another seller. So that's why the firms here would just be a price taker, and the market supply and demand shall determine the price. The same goes with the buyers. They cannot just decide what the price would be for the goods they're going to buy. Second is the number of firms is large. So the numbers of firms are too many. There are many sellers here, or many firms that are willing to sell the goods. Each firm has to be a small producer relative to the quantity demanded. So you should take note that even though there are many sellers, the um, the producers individually are small relative to the quantity demanded. So this means that there are many firms to supply the market, but none of which has a significant share of the market. The third one is there are no barriers to entry. If an entrepreneur sees profits being made in a perfectly competitive market, he's able to enter the market immediately and begin competing profits away from the firms in the market. Similarly, if he's in the market and not making profits, he's able to pack up and leave without his leaving incurring any costs that can't be recovered. So here, anyone can just join the market because there are no barriers to entry, and they can also freely leave the um, economy or the market if they decided they no longer want to sell the goods. Examples of barriers to entry are technological, like for example, the minimum efficient level of production allows only one firm to produce at the lowest average total cost, or it could be social forces, like bankers will lend only to individuals with specific racial characteristics, or it could be a legal barrier wherein there are patents for products or processes. So again, in perfect competition, we do not find any of these barriers. Anyone can just come and sell the goods. So typically, everyone can be a seller or everyone can be a producer. Number four, firms' products are identical. So, as what I have mentioned earlier, the goods that one seller sells can also be found in another seller. So each firm's output is homogeneous, that is indistinguishable from any other's output. So basically, you have the same items for sale. And number five, there is a complete information. Consumers are perfectly informed about what products are available, the qualities of the products, where they are sold, and at what prices. Thus, they're immediately able to assess whether they want to purchase from one firm or another. So they can also freely hop from one store, from one seller, from one producer to another. And finally, we have the selling firms are profit maximizing entrepreneurial firms. A firm that is a profit maximizer will sell its good at a market price. Of course, we already know that this market price would be achieved because of the demand and supply. A perfectly competitive firm can sell as large a quantity as it wishes as long as it accepts the prevailing market price. Total revenue is going to increase as the firm sells more depending on the price of the product and the number of units sold. So if you increase the number of units sold at a given price, the total revenue will increase. If the price of the product increases for every unit sold, of course, the total revenue would also increase. Since a perfectly competitive firm is a price taker, it can sell whatever quantity it wishes at a market determined price. Now let's try to find out how a perfectly competitive firm would maximize its profit. Okay? So remember that the goal of a firm is to maximize the profits, to get as much for itself as possible. So when it decides what quantity to produce, it will ask how will the profit change if there's a change in the quantity that I will produce. So remember that profit is the difference between the revenue and the cost. So what happens to profit in response to a change in output is determined by the marginal revenue. And in this case, in a perfectly competitive firm, we know that the marginal revenue would be equal to the price. Kay price taker man ta ani dili man ta ka basta-basta ka change sa mga prices, because remember that our buyers have so many options in the market, because there are also so many sellers who sell the same items that we offer in the market. So kung unsa ang mogawas nga market price, mao po na siya uh, pinakataas na po na kaya nato nga i-accept Kay i-lower po nato ang price ano niya, of course daghan palit sa atoa, but of course our competitors will also, since competitive man kayo ang market, mo adjust pud sila, di ba? So wala gyud tay kapaingnan ani, mas mugamay nun ato ang ginansya kung ato ang paubsan ang presyo. So mosunod na lang gyud ta sa unsay market price. So here our demand curve in the firm, sa firm ni siya is steady nga horizontal. So at any at a fixed price which is based on the market price, we can offer as many quantities of the goods as we want. Okay, so the profit maximizing point here is where the marginal cost is equivalent to the price, or equivalent to the marginal revenue. Remember that the price here is equivalent to the marginal revenue. So at this intersection, this is the profit maximizing output, which is, according to this one, that is 8. That is our profit maximizing output. So let's go to the important points here. So first is, let's talk about the marginal revenue. So since a perfect competitor accepts the market price as given, marginal revenue again is simply the market price. So in the example in this figure, so the firm increases output from 2 to 3. Okay, so you have there from 2 to 3. So it will add additional income of $35 per unit increase. But if it wants to add 2 more, so from 2 to 4, so that's 2 items, 2 units times 35, so that's $70. So we have a uniform marginal revenue when we say marginal additional revenue. So here, you can sell as much as you want, but your marginal revenue would be the same. Then now let's go to the marginal cost. So the marginal cost is the change in the total cost that accompanies a change in the output. So here, this is found in column 3. If you can see that from 28, it goes down to 20, now 16, 14, 12, and then it increases to 17, 22, 54, and it is shown in the graph that it is a U shape in form, because you have there the high point at 28 here, and then you plot them in the graph until you reach this one. This is 12, and then it will rise up, up, up until it goes to 54 and continually rises. Notice also that the marginal cost figures are given for movements from one quantity to another. That's because marginal concepts tells us that what happens when there's a change in something. So marginal concepts are best defined between numbers. So you have marginal cost of increasing output from 1 to 2 is $20, and the marginal cost of increasing from 2 to 3 is 16. Okay, the marginal cost right at 2, okay, right at 2, which is the marginal cost graph shows, would be between 20 and 16. Okay, so you have here this one at 2, this is 2, the here is 2. Okay, so let's trace that. So that's between 16 and 20. Okay, so that would be our marginal cost. To maximize the profit, a firm should produce where the marginal cost equals the marginal revenue. So, mao ni siya ang point. This is the intersection of the marginal revenue and the marginal cost. So, now, let's try to find out why is it that kaninong intersection niya, this would be the profit maximizing output. Okay, so let us try to explore what if we do not use 8, what if we use 5, we use 6, we use 7, we use 9, or we use 10. Okay, so the firm here will receive $35 per unit. It adds its production. So the marginal revenue for producing a another item would be 35. So for example, we are referring here at point A. What if it produces 5 units? So additional revenue in producing another unit from 4 to 5 would be 35 additional revenue. So it makes sense to have produced 5 units rather than 4. Okay. So should the firm here increase from 4 to 6? So again, marginal revenue would still be 35 per unit. So however, look at the marginal cost from uh, 5, okay, from 5 or from 4 to 6. The marginal cost here would be 17 if that is from 5 to 6. So what will happen now to our profit? Okay, so the marginal revenue, remember, is 35. Diba? 35 siya. If the marginal cost from 5 to 6, gikan sa 5 to 6 is 17. So, pila naman ang ginansya? Diba? So, 35 minus 17, you have 18. So, it makes sense to increase the production. Diba? Naaman gihapon tay ginansya. So as long as your marginal cost is lesser than the marginal revenue, again, marginal cost is lesser than marginal revenue at this part, there will be profits. Okay? Na ay ginansya. Kaya natural, mas dako man ang revenue kaysa sa cost. Now, let us say that the firm decides to produce 10 items or 10 units. So, ani. Okay? So, dirita. So here the firm will get 35 for an additional unit. So for example, from 9 to 10, ang iyahang revenue would be 35. Kaya di ba kada sa ka-unit kay 35 man. So the marginal cost of producing additional unit from 9 to 10, so look at here, from 9 to 10 would be 54. Okay? So remember nga ang profit would be the difference between the revenue and the cost. Balik ta, 35 ang revenue, marginal revenue, and ang cost mahimong 54. So, naa siya diri nga part. Okay, 54. So, therefore, unsa man siya, na ba siya ginansya or naa siya lugi? Okay? So, lugi siya. Diba? Kaya mas dako man ang cost. Kung iyahang i-decrease from 10 to 9, okay, its revenue will decrease by 35. But, of course, mo-decrease man sa datong cost. So, na ay profit increase of 19 kung atong paus-usan ang ato ang units. So, at point C, it makes sense to decrease output. So, the reasoning holds true as long as the marginal cost is above the marginal revenue. So, kung mas labaw ang cost, kinahanglan gyud natong i-decrease ang ato ang output. So, here is another illustration to determine the competitive firm's price, level of output, and profit. So, first is, again, determine the intersection between the demand curve and the supply curve. So, this is the price that the competitive firm accepts for its products. So, we trace that up here, the horizontal line, and this would be the individual firms quantity and the price. So here we have the uniform price because it's going to accept the price that is agreed upon in the market. So the profit maximizing level of output again is where the marginal revenue intersects with the marginal cost. So this is the point wherein there is intersection. So determine the profit by subtracting the average total cost at the profit maximizing level output from the price and multiplying by the firm's output. So here you get the difference between the price and the average total cost. This time nanay additional average total cost. times the quantity, there would be a profit. So kani consider na ang average total cost kay mao naman ni ang total niya nga cost. So there would be profit at this area. Okay? Ani nga area. So if you're demonstrating profit graphically, find the point at which the MC intersects with the MR. So extend a line down to the ATC curve, extend a line from this point to the vertical axis, this one, okay? To complete the box indicating profit, go up the vertical axis to the market price, okay? So this area here is where you have a profit, okay? Kay mao man nimuhang total cost kutob ani, so kani ang mahimo niya ginansya. So for example, this is 35 and this is 20. So at this point naagid tay ginansya nga 15. So mao na yung difference niya. Okay, 35 and 20. Then we have the shutdown point. So what is this shutdown point? So the firm should continue to produce as long as the price exceeds the average variable cost. So kinahanglan daw nga mag-continue lang gihapon basta lang ang price nato mas labaw pa sa variable cost. Once the price will fall, pag mugamay atong price, mas maayo pang i-shut down para dili na ta makagasto sa variable cost. Okay, so in this graph, it will be shown at the point A here. So you have point A. So this is the intersection of your variable cost. Okay, so this is the variable cost and the intersection of the marginal cost, right? So this is the intersection, this is the marginal cost. So in the long run equilibrium position for a firm in a competitive industry, so this is shown here, okay? Only normal profits are made, okay? Now let's look at this graph. So we have here the marginal revenue or our prices here. And then mas dako pa ang ato ang average total cost. Okay? So, mas labaw pang average total cost. So this area here naagid tay loss. Okay? Loss ni siya nga area. And then kung ang atong price daw is muubos siya, for example, at this intersection of the average variable cost and the ATC, so kung mo abot ta diri ang price ani niya moubos hangtod 17.80, we will expect nga luging-lugi na gyud ana. So in this case, kinahanglan na ta nga mag-shutdown. Okay? So ani nga point kinahanglan na ta mo shutdown kay luging-lugi na gyud ta. Dili na ma-cover sa ato ang marginal revenue ang ato ang variable cost. For example, consider the situation of Yoga Center which has a signed contract to rent space that costs $10,000 per month. So kung na siya contract, dili na siya basta-basta nimong i-stop. Dapat mag-continue na siya. So if the firm decides to operate, its marginal cost for hiring yoga teachers is 15,000 for the month. So this 15,000 is our variable cost. Okay. Variable cost sad because mao man ni siya bayad sa ato ang yoga teachers. Kung walay teachers nga mo trabaho, walay teachers nga mag-conduct og sessions, dili man nimo siya magasto. That's why it's variable cost. Whereas this rent sa rent space na to, kaning bayad sa rent space, this is fixed because even if walay classes, padayon man gihapon ni siya nga ma-incur. If the firm shut down, so it will still pay the rent, but it would need to hire labor. It would not need to hire labor. So akong gingon niya, avoidable ang bayad sa yoga teachers. So there are three scenarios presented here. Scenario 1, the yoga center does not have any clients. Wala sila mga kliyente, so wala sila kita. But since padayon man ang bayad sa renta, so naagi hapon sila $10,000 nga fixed cost. So here, what is our profit? Wala tay profit, kay of course wala man tay revenue. Ang atong mahimong gasto kay $10,000. That is pag wala tay client. Okay? Pero padayon gihapon ta nga padayon gihapon ang ato ang bayad sa renta. Walay client pero padayon ang renta. If the firm will shut down now, the revenues are zero, but wala man kita, or sorry, walay halin, di ba? Walay sales, walay revenue, but it will not incur variable cost. So again, kung manirado ta karon, dili na ta mag-allow og mga clients, wala tay revenue, pero padayon ang ato ang bayad sa renta. And magbayad gihapon ta aning $10,000. Scenario 2, what if the yoga center has clients, okay, that earn center revenues of $10,000 for the month, but since naaman tay client, di ba, magbayad man tag 15,000 para sa yoga instructors. So what will happen now to the profit? Remember that to get a profit, it's the difference between revenue and the cost. So this is our revenue katong bayad sa mga clients, but our total cost would be 10,000 plus 15,000. So 15,000 is ang bayad sa yoga instructors. Ang 10,000 kay katong renta. Lugi ta og 15,000. So the center here earns revenues of $10,000, but the variable costs are 15,000. So the center should shut down now. Okay? Ngano i-shutdown man siya, lugi kaayo. Mas maayo pa ang dili mag-operate. Diba? Tanawan tong sa previous. Pag di mag-operate, ang iyahang lugi kay $10,000. Pero pag magpadayon noon siya, even if na ay revenue nga $10,000, gamay na siya. Dili niya makover ang mga expenses. Mas dako og lugi. So, mas maayo nga dili na lang mag-continue. I-shutdown na lang siya. In the third scenario, the yoga center earns revenues of 20,000 but experiences losses of 5,000. So this is how we compute the losses. You have the revenue of 20,000, total cost of 25,000, so you have a loss of 5,000. But what could you suggest? Should the firm continue? Okay, yes. Nganong i-continue man, mas bintaha man ni kung ang revenue kay $20,000. Why is it mas better? Ngano man ni siyang mas bintaha? Because mas lesser man ang losses compared atong scenario 1 nga $10,000 ang loss kung wala yung client pero mag-continue og bayad og renta. So this is how you will determine kung kinahanglan i-shut down or dili. You need to compare kung asa man ang mas maayo, asa man ang mas lesser ang ato ang losses. So, kung mas lesser ang losses kung mag-continue, so continue ta sa business. Pero kung mas lesser ang losses kung manirado ta, so manirado na naman ta sa ato ang business. If you like this video, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be updated with the latest video lessons. Thank you for watching.